Something a lot of people don't realize is just how many times Floyd Mayweather has lost the first few rounds of his fights. He's been outpowered, outboxed, outpaced, and outsmarted. But somehow, he's always found a way back, taking away his opponent's best weapons and forcing them to fight where he feels comfortable. And this is where Floyd's true strength lies.
The modern martial artist is switching to YouTube memberships, putting all of our exclusive perks in one place for our most important sponsor, you. We need your support to continue creating content about the sports we love, and that's why we're excited to offer even more through YouTube memberships. The team is bringing you early video access and 2 exclusives each month. To start, we've got the growth of BKFC and a close look at Khamzat's dominating style. So, if you like what we do and want to see more, become a channel member today.
Floyd fought Zab Judah. He faced an opponent with incredible speed and an unorthodox strategy. The most common positioning taught to southpaws is to place their lead foot on the outside of their opponents. This positions their rear hand closer to their competitor and provides them extra protection. But Zab fought from a more challenging, but equally dangerous position, placing his lead foot inside and angling in to open up Floyd's guard. This setup let him step inside to move past Floyd's attack and then catch him as he landed. Zab eventually landed an uncalled knockdown off of a lead hook. But Floyd figured out Zab's setup, and he began to step inside Zab's punches to smother him before he could take a superior angle. Once he had negated Zab's best attack, Floyd began to execute his defensive footwork off of his own attacks. Just like any fight, there were a great deal more variables at play, but it's an easy argument to make that Mayweather taking away his opponent's best weapon played a big factor. When Mayweather faced Maidana, it turned out to be one of his most challenging fights. Maidana had great success for near the full first half of the fight, effectively driving Mayweather to the ropes and squaring up in a wide stance so Floyd had no room to escape. Mayweather often goes to the ropes on purpose, taking his time to jab and counter as he heads back comfortably, confident that he has the ability to escape at will. This is as much a psychological game as anything else. That being said, staying in the corner has its benefits. It eliminates variables, taking away angles from which to counter and negating escape routes. Woodley has recently used the same tactic to great success in the octagon. Floyd escapes the ropes by ducking and pivoting, often knocking his opponents off balance by staying low and keeping a wide base. But Maidana squared up and kept his feet wide, opening himself up, but cutting off Mayweather's escape routes. He then smothered and wrestled to set up his punches. Maidana avoided the temptation to headhunt, pounding at Mayweather's body until he lowered his guard. Mayweather was taking more damage in a few rounds than he normally took in an entire fight. And the fascinating thing about this fight is how many different ways Mayweather tried to adjust before he successfully took control of the match. Mayweather began by taking the advice of his corner and jabbing more to the body. Jabbing the sternum takes the air out of an opponent, and it's one of the most effective weapons in Mayweather's arsenal. This would pay off later, but Maidana's proficiency at shifting as he punched allowed him to still drive Mayweather to the ropes. Mayweather next tried circling and lateral movement, rebounding side to side like Willie Pep. This gave him some breathing room, but Maidana's jab kept putting him back into the corner. Mayweather then began using collar ties and underhooks to turn himself off of the ropes. This was a more effective strategy, but although Mayweather was escaping the ropes quicker, he was still taking damage. Most fighters would have run out of options far before this point, but Mayweather is not most fighters. Maidana's strategy relied on getting close to Floyd to smother him, burying his head into his chest to protect himself, unbalance Mayweather, and smother his punches. So Mayweather began leaning on Maidana as he charged at him, taking the power out of his blows and discouraging him from bull rushing. He also used a forearm block to stop Maidana from burying his head on his shoulder. Using this defensive position again discouraged Maidana from charging in, as he would essentially be running his chin right into Floyd's forearm or elbow. Floyd then began framing off of these blocks and even his punches. Keeping his strikes extended to control Maidana's balance and distance. This finally gave Floyd the space he needed to fight. With Maidana's safer wrestling positions denied him, Mayweather could now tie him up when he got pushed against the ropes. More and more, Maidana was forced to fight in the center of the ring, and over the last few rounds, Floyd picked him apart. People often credit Floyd's ability to outlast and outpace his opponents as one of the biggest factors in his success. Maidana's stamina did play a large part in him fading over the last half of the fight, but it's often ignored what a huge part Floyd's techniques and tactics play in wearing down his competitors. Without Mayweather's body jabs and his ability to turn an opponent's wrestling against him, Maidana may have kept up his pace for 2 or 3 more rounds and won the fight on the scorecards. But this is why Floyd has never lost. He's a master tactician, able to identify his opponent's strengths and turn them into weaknesses. Floyd's unique style, with his pivoting ducks and Philly shell, is impressive, but it has weaknesses that can be exploited, just like any other style. Instead, it's Floyd's ability to adapt quickly that sets him apart. By the way, watching the Maidana fight, I couldn't help thinking about what would happen if Mayweather had fought a prime Roberto Duran.
Back in 2009, Floyd Mayweather shocked the world, coming out of a years-long retirement to fight none other than Juan Manuel Marquez. Marquez was one of the world's greatest boxers, a 3-weight champion, and the pride of Mexico. Although no belt was on the line, the reputation of these two Goliaths of boxing was enough to send fans into a frenzy. The fight generated over 1 million buys, and it was easy to understand why. Mayweather had retired the undefeated pound-for-pound king of boxing, and his well-crafted, fluid style built around calculation and precision played a big part in that. He paired a Philly shell guard with a high guard, and was excellent at countering from either. He preferred to limit both his and his opponent's offensive options, so that he could bet on his superior smarts, reflexes, and timing to outscore them. Mayweather possessed perhaps the best timing and rhythm ever seen in the ring, and above all else, the ability to adapt and use his opponent's own strategy against them. He would need all of this and more if he hoped to get past Marquez. Over his long and impressive career, Dinamita had racked up 50 wins, 37 of them by knockout. His only losses had been at the hands of the great Manny Pacquiao, who Marquez maintained he had beaten and would years later knock out cold. Marquez tended to force opponents into long, brutal exchanges where both fighters were at risk, and one tiny mistake could bring dire consequences. He employed crafty head movement and unusual punching angles to find obscure, downright brilliant routes to his target. And while he was busy setting up the angles for his punches with his own head movement, he was also tracking his opponent's head movement. With a mix of wide and super tight punches. Although Marquez would be going up near 10 pounds past the weight he was used to fighting, his crafty style and fast combinations would no doubt present a challenge to any boxer with 2 years of ring rust. What's more, on paper, Marquez's style seemed to be all wrong for the former champion. As much as Mayweather is painted as a safe boxer, he heavily utilized one of the riskiest moves, the body jab. This jab basically asks your opponent to crack your jaw by placing it within easy reach. One of the main concerns for the body jab is the lead uppercut, and Marquez was known for this punch. so it's not unreasonable to think that the two main concerns for Mayweather going into the fight would be Marquez timing his body jab or low crouch in general, or Marquez using his varied punching angles to break through Mayweather's Philly shell. But Mayweather shrugged all this off, saying, "I've been there 39 times. All 39 had a game plan. All 39 came up short." And when the night arrived, to the surprise of many, Floyd got aggressive right away. What's more, he immediately started piling on body jabs. Marquez tried to counter, but somehow he was missing every single time. To explain why, let's quickly listen to Tyson's coach, Customato, explain this position to Muhammad Ali.
See, same thing. Bang! That's what I would do next. Well, now, you knew what I was going to do, too. No, well, that's right, because I knew that I only left white areas you could hit me. What about, first of all, when I did the shuffle, your move was here, which left you open here. No, that's what you said. No, wait, you're saying that. I did. I was not open there. I never do that. Never do that.
So Mayweather, of course, knew there were only a few counters to this mostly closed-off position, and it's always much easier to react if you know what's coming first. On top of these body jabs, Mayweather started blitzing out gazelle hooks. It seems that Mayweather's response to Marquez's toe-to-toe style was to fight fire with fire. But Mayweather's strategy went far beyond being randomly, recklessly aggressive. There was a lot more at play here. Notice that Mayweather sets up his body jabs and lead head hooks from the exact same starting position. Flaring out his arm like this was a necessary preparation for lead hooks, given the tucked-in Philly shell position Mayweather was fighting from. But by using it for both attacks, Mayweather turned a telegraphic liability into a clever trap. In the second, Marquez read Mayweather's preparatory motion as a cue to block a body jab. Instead, Mayweather's arm circled around and over Marquez's rear hand block to catch him flush. Marquez fell to the canvas. This was a major surprise for most everyone. However, for Marquez, this was almost a tradition, as he had gone on to get knocked down and then knock his opponent out several times. He was up right away, and now it was on Mayweather to finish the job. Mayweather went in for the kill, but ironically, this was to his detriment, as Marquez easily countered the more direct, telegraphed attacks. He gave jabs for jabs, and body hooks for lead hooks and crosses. It's truly fascinating that all it took was a tiny bit less nuance and preparation from Mayweather for Marquez to start dominating exchanges, even after being knocked down. But Floyd was back in form over the next several rounds, controlling the action with erratic timing, controlling positioning through brilliant grappling, and controlling the distance with well-placed jabs and footwork. However, Marquez was not just a warrior. He was an intelligent master of his craft, just like Floyd. So, he made two major adjustments. The first being to commit to long combinations, trying to catch Mayweather out of position. Marquez's varied angles and his ability to anticipate an opponent's head movement allowed him to land some nice power punches. Although, as always, it was difficult to catch Mayweather completely flush. In fact, the reason this tactic worked so well against Canelo and less well against Mayweather is that Mayweather always kept himself perfectly balanced and positioned, even at the tail end of long exchanges. The second adjustment Marquez made was to risk countering Mayweather's power punches with his own, even if he had to take one to give a harder one back. And this was working well enough to create the potential for a knockout. So although Mayweather was still racking up points with his jabs, Marquez seemed to be finding openings and was looking like he might be back in the fight by the fifth. But if Mayweather is one thing to his competitors, he is the killer of hopes and dreams. perhaps realizing that his lead hook was now doing him just as much harm as good. Mayweather abandoned the punch that had scored him an early knockdown almost entirely. By the 7th, he had gone from throwing it around 10 times per round to 2 or 3. Instead, he switched to throwing his cross, using it both as a lead, like Ali, and as a draw and counter tactic, like Ali. And this punch was much harder for Marquez to counter, because while Mayweather's hook was a 2-beat punch that was only working because it was paired with a body jab, Mayweather's cross was 1 beat, much straighter and lightning fast. Further prepped for speed by Mayweather leaning his weight far forward, the cross was too quick for Marquez to intercept, and Mayweather was preventing any return counters by exiting with extreme angles, shifting past the center line like Roy Jones Jr., or he could use grappling to shut Marquez down. By the 10th, Mayweather was practically walking Marquez down, even keeping his hands low to taunt and draw counters. Ever the warrior, Marquez went for broke in round 11. But Mayweather blocked most of the shots. And then landed nearly at will. In the very last round, Marquez caught Mayweather with some hard shots, showing that perhaps the potential for a victory had been there with the right game plan. But Mayweather always responded immediately to rack back up the points, more than evening out the scorecard. The bell sounded the end of the fight, and money took the decision, proving once again that he was perhaps the greatest mid-fight strategy ever to lace up gloves.
Inside of the boxing ring, Mayweather was one of the gutsiest fighters to ever lace up gloves. I'm not here to argue with those who have taken issue with Floyd's choice of opponents, or when he chose to fight them, although I do look forward to reading those conversations in the comments. I am arguing that, inside of the squared circle, Mayweather pulled off some of the bravest tactics and most dangerous techniques in boxing. Mayweather took calculated risks, but the risks he calculated were gigantic. It was the pure grit and iron will shown at the beginning of his fights that allowed him to consistently cruise for the remainder of the bout. And he did it all with pure ice in his veins, so calm and collected that most never even realized he was recklessly abandoning core tenets of boxing.
When a defensive-minded boxer gets cornered and hit on the ropes, their main order of business is to escape and stay away from them as much as possible. Mayweather, on the other hand, would put himself right back into the exact same position, walking back to the ropes where he just took damage and inviting his opponent to try again. Mayweather was so obsessed with dominating in every element of the game that when he got caught, he looked for a do-over. This do-or-die mentality is the core philosophy under which Mayweather fought, and this became more and more so the later into his career he got. Rather than shy away from threats and stay away from places where he would be less safe, Floyd wanted to dominate everywhere. This man let his opponents put him in the corner time and time again, because to try and avoid the corner too often would give them a slight edge, or perhaps a glimmer of hope. Floyd conceded nothing, and so his style was all or nothing. Mayweather did the same thing when he got caught with certain punches, inviting the opponent to throw again until he had mapped out the best defense in his mind. If he took a hard shot,
He wanted it thrown again so that he could try a different block or another kind of head movement. These insane risks, inviting punches that his opponent had already shown could land, was how Mayweather shut down their offense so early in the fight. Once he did that, he could plan out counters, taking away their best punches. But of course, Floyd would not let his opponents take away one single punch from him.
Back for 3 consecutive wins. That shot hurt Floyd. Another shot that hurts Floyd. That shot hurt Floyd right there. And Pacquiao looking to take advantage. Mayweather absorbing those body blows, nodding, "No, you're not hurting me."
I've covered before how Mayweather was having trouble with Zab Judah's off-angle left-hand counters. And how he got better and better at smothering and stifling those counters. Until he could stop the punch before it even started. But the most impactful shot Mayweather took in that fight was a hard counter hook while throwing a body cross. Body crosses aren't the most common or necessary punch to throw in a match. And against a southpaw, it's even riskier. But either that punch was a core component of Mayweather's game plan, or he was just looking to prove a point, because he kept throwing that body punch like he got paid extra every time it landed. He got away with this by pinning Judah's lead hand so that he couldn't return a hook. And a few other ways too, but that one is by far the coolest. I love this moment where Zab tries to copy the technique, and Mayweather uses that to land yet one more body cross. Eventually, Mayweather started using the threat of the punch to set up headshots, and building on the punch itself to set up combinations. What a lot of people don't seem to notice is just how insanely aggressive Mayweather is with his offense. It's probably impossible to find a bout where he doesn't lead with his right multiple times, often lowering his hands and swinging for the fences. If you're ever looking to take a dive against a professional boxer, then this is maybe the best way to get knocked out immediately. But Floyd believes in his timing so much that it's one of his signature moves. It's the same story with his gazelle hook, where he drops his lead hand low before shuffling forward, chin first. Body straights aren't the safest thing either, but they're a big part of Money's style. He'll also bait punches with both hands down. These are not the tactics of a timid boxer. All of this had such a major psychological impact on his opponents. Even a boxer getting dominated can usually point to a few areas where they excelled at the end of the fight. Mayweather took away everything, leaving many feeling frustrated and defeated before the bout was even halfway over. Floyd knew that mental warfare was one of his greatest weapons. He would leave himself open, put himself on the ropes, and invite his competitors to try their best, smiling all the while. When it looks like your opponent is rooting for you to hit them, and you still can't, that's devastating.
He's basically letting him tee off. Floyd knows that Endo is not doing absolutely anything to him.
Was Mayweather calculating? Yes. Were some of his bouts frustrating to watch? For me, absolutely. But was Mayweather a coward? A fighter who ran the whole bout without risking anything themselves? Never. Love or hate his style, Mayweather was one of the gutsiest fighters to ever lace up gloves.
And he's well worth studying for his tactics, even if you don't want to emulate his techniques or his strategy. But let me know what you think in the comments below. From the Modern Martial Artist, this has been David Christian, wishing you happy training.